You hear that clap?
I don't.
What's going on? It's Connect Podcast.
Good to be here, Jared.
Good to be here. We are back. We had to take a little hiatus because of the COVID.
Yes, you.
Yes,
Specifically.
specifically.
Last week, Aiden and I get a call, and it's from Jared, and he's like, "Hey, are we doing the podcast today?" It's like, Jared, we really don't have to.
I was like, let's do it. I'll do it remote.
Yes.
I'll set up, and it'll be cool.
Yeah, it was totally. Yeah, you sounded like Roy Kent from Ted Lasso.
Yeah, which maybe that'd be kind of, I wish I kind of sounded like that more often, to be honest with you. But
be like, oh, Matt got a new co-host. This is great.
That's right. And so, but we're back and feeling good, getting back into the rhythm of life outside of quarantine.
Now, all like you and all 19 of your kids ended up with COVID, correct?
Oh my gosh. So Christiana, we actually had a trip planned. We go back and forth with vacations, so we do a family vacation 1 year,
or a familycation,
a famcation 1 year, and then the next year we leave the children behind, and Christiana and I just go on our own somewhere. And so our trip this year was to go to Florida. It was going to be just her and me, and we had some friends from Iowa that were going down to Destin, Florida, and we were going to meet them down there and have a good time and just relax. And so it's literally a week before we leave, and Christiana comes up to me and she says, "Jared, I have bad news." And I'm like, "What?" And she said, "I can't taste or smell anything." And I'm like, "Crap."
That's the telltale sign.
So then we start trying to look around, and other people had COVID, and so we were able to find some tests, and sure enough, she tested positive. And so we had to cancel our trip. Thankfully, the resort we were going to, you can cancel for a full refund as long as it's 7 days beforehand. Yes. And it was Monday afternoon, and so it was like the last possible chance for us to cancel and get our money back.
So you got your money back?
We got our money back from the resort, and then I talked to the airline, and they gave us a credit.
Okay.
So we have an airline credit so that we can hopefully reschedule this trip sometime and probably not till after Christmas at this point because everything is ramping up for Christmas. But, oh, man, it was so disappointing. My friends, they went on this trip, and so they would post pictures and things, and I just kept commenting, "I hate you," and on every single one of their pictures.
It wasn't just like you who got COVID and your family, but like your whole block, right?
Oh, my. Well, so we live next door to my sister and brother-in-law, and my parents live in town as well. And the way that all started was that my niece got in a really bad car accident. She was traveling home from work on I-76. Her boyfriend had picked her up. They were just driving home. It was like 9:30 at night, so it was dark. They weren't doing anything wrong, and a drunk driver was literally driving on the wrong side of the highway and ran into them head on.
That was a scary night.
It was a terrible night, a really long night. But thankfully, Eliana is back home. She's doing well.
Yeah, I got to see her yesterday.
Yeah, she was here, and she's still recouping and trying to figure out all the aftermath of all that stuff. We've learned how terrible insurance is and how they do everything, like literally drunk driver on the wrong side of the road, and yet somehow there's no insurance to cover anything.
Yeah.
So figure that one out for me if you could.
Yes.
And but yeah, so we're helping. So while my sister and brother-in-law are at the hospital with Eliana, Christiana and I are helping with all of their kids because Jason and Jessica have 6 kids of their own. We have our 4 kids plus the 3 fosters, and so we're all just kind of like partying at their house, making sure everybody's staying safe.
So basically, like every day is a family reunion for you.
Every day was absolutely. And then my parents were coming over, and then Jason's parents also came over, and Jason's mom ended up catching COVID, which then spread to everybody else. And so we all kind of got it at the same time. We were all quarantined at the same time. We're all getting better. My mom's getting better. She's been on oxygen. I was talking to her this morning. It's been like 4 weeks. And so she's finally starting to uptick and go in the right direction, which is good, which a lot of people, that doesn't happen for them. So we're really grateful for that. But, man, it's been a long summer. It's been an eventful summer at the Haley Van Meter household.
Yes, or just a long September.
No, the whole summer, because the beginning of the summer
I'm just saying September was, the accident, the COVID,
September. Well,
all that stuff.
September started with, or not September, the summer started with my dad finding out that he had bladder cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And then my grandma passed away.
Yeah.
And then our house got hit by a tornado and our basement flooded.
Yep.
And it's just like, yeah. And I know that, man, God is good through it all, you know? And I feel like there's never been a point in any of this that I felt like, man, God has abandoned us. I just never felt that ever. It never even crossed my mind. I never questioned any of it. And so I'm grateful for Jesus in our lives, because I don't understand. I was talking with Pastor Kim yesterday about how people somehow they manage to push through, but I don't understand how you get through terrible circumstances not knowing that there's a God there that cares for you.
Yeah.
And so that's a really big deal. So, hey, that's a whole lot of information that I didn't think I was going to share with you today, but you're welcome.
Yeah. I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Oh, no, wrong button. I was trying to give me a celebratory being, and I buzzed myself.
You should let me handle the buttons.
Sorry, that's true. I'm going to sit on my hands for the rest of the episode. So, man, I have a good question for you.
Okay.
And we're actually in a man-to-man series right now on Sunday mornings, which is really fun. We're talking through what is a biblical guide to manhood, and what does that look like for us to be men, especially in our culture right now, because there's so many different varying thoughts about what it means to be a man or to be masculine, and how do we live that out in a godly way. And so it's a really cool series. If you haven't been listening, or if you haven't been a part of Crossroads in the past, check out this series in particular, because it's really, really good. But we're going to dive into that a little bit more today. And I'm just wondering, one of the things that I think is really hard as a dad, and I'm getting really close to bridging this conversation, is the sex talk, the birds and the bees. And so I'm curious, before we get into what you did with your kids and how you have taken this biblical journey of manhood with your own in your own family, I'm curious, as you were growing up, what did that look like for you? What did manhood look like for you? And what did it look like? What did that sex talk look like for you?
Yeah, so those are two different things. So, thankfully in my house, my dad is he was a strong dad. He was a really good father.
In the sense of emotional, or he could bench 250?
I'm meaning in terms of everything that we've talked about in the series of Man to Man. Mm-hmm. My dad demonstrated pretty well in his life. Yeah. And then my grandfather on my dad's side was equally as strong in that space. And so I had two really strong role models growing up of what a man looked like. And so, through osmosis, I would say, watching their example and their model, I was really able to pick up a lot of what does it look like to be a man? Not on the side of toxic masculinity, not, in the passiveness side of things, but what does it look like to be a man from two guys who really lived out biblical values well.
Did you grasp that as a kid, or was that just something that once you got older, you look back and go, oh, this is what it means? Were you thinking of it in that context of what does it mean to be a man? I'm going to go watch I'm going to go watch my dad and see what he's doing to, or is it just kind of in retrospect, you kind of see those character traits being passed on?
Yeah, I think that it was mostly in retrospect, but I think there was moments along the way that as I was growing up that I actually was cognizant of what my dad was doing. So one of the things, my dad's been in the C-suite for a long time in terms of the business world. And everywhere he's gone.
The C-suite?
Yes, so executive level type stuff. And so
there's a new one for me, but there you go. I like to learn new things.
There you are. And so, but everywhere he went, he started a Bible study in his office and just invited people to be a part of it and said, this is what it looks like to be, to do business the way that the Creator would have us do business. And people would voluntarily be a part of it. Every morning, if you woke up early enough before my dad went to work, he would eat his oatmeal. That's what he had every day. And he would open his Max Lucado study Bible and he would read a few verses out of the Bible and pray. And so I saw that modeled growing up, in terms of, the way he disciplined us, the encouragement that he gave us, it was just a strong model. And so of course I noticed it along the way. But then I think when I became older, I was able to look back and really go, man, my dad was was a great role model for me. My grandfather was a great role model for me in that space. Now, when it came to sex, I say that's a different question because, most of the birds and the bees conversation came from Adams 12 school district growing up. And so I remember that in 5th grade and probably again in 8th. And then in high school, it was really funny. I went to 3 different high schools because we moved 3 different states when I was in high school.
Okay.
Because of my dad's job. And somewhere along the line.
In the, what is it called? The
C-suite.
In the C-suite. He was moving jobs in the C-suite.
Yes, yeah. So
cruising.
Different companies, all that kind of stuff.
Got it.
And so we, my senior year, the high school that I ended up in, you had to take a semester of health. And so through my whole high school experience, I had never taken it because it was either at different years or whatever at different times. So I had to go back and catch up my senior year on all these classes that I missed for this particular school district. And so one of them was health class. So I was a senior in there with a bunch of freshmen and got taught all about sex ed again. And so, I'm 41 years old. So 30 years ago when I was in youth group, sex in the church was like an issue that was like faux pas. And I remember being a part of this church, Crossroads, where I grew up, broaching the issue like subtly from time to time. And I remember some of the anxiety around talking about that and not wanting to share too much and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, Adams 12 supplemented a little bit by my parents and a little less by the church.
Yeah. I kind of remember, I mean, that was kind of the era, wasn't it? Like, you heard the bare minimum, which was wait till you're married.
That's right.
And that was about
boys are good, girls are good, sex is good in marriage.
That's right.
Anything else?
The end.
Not today.
Moving on. Let's talk about why you shouldn't do drugs.
That's right. That's right.
We were having a conversation. I was like, remember back when our biggest concern was sex and drugs?
Yep.
And now there's so many other things that are issues that we're dealing with. But that's for another day. Yeah, birds and bees for me, that my mom had a book. I remember that she kind of walked us through this book about it. And but that was about it for us too. I went to a charter school where they said that's the parents' job is to tell the kids about sex.
Yeah.
And so my mom did, to be fair.
Yeah.
She talked to me about it, but I never really felt comfortable talking about it with her or with my dad until we got older. And so a lot of that was me trying to navigate that stuff on my own and probably in really unhealthy ways.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what it is and things along those lines. So I think that there's a lot of value for us as men, and we'll dive into that a little bit later as well, as far as what does it look like for us to be intentional, to be able to have that sex talk with our children, both for moms and the ladies and for dads and the men. And that's kind of how, I mean, it doesn't have to happen that way. I think that there would have been some value in me having some of those conversations with my dad. I think that might have opened up some doors, and I don't fault them for that. I mean, we're all trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
right?
we are. And, like I said, 20, you're not too much younger than I am. So 30 years ago, if you were a Christian, this was just a subject that you didn't talk about, right? Yep. It was like behind private doors. That's what happened between a husband and a wife in the Christian setting. And
wait till you're married and you figure it out.
That's right. And so there's a lot more openness to it now, probably a little bit in terms of the push of culture, with how much we've been sexualized,
sure,
particularly women.
Well,
in
and
our
technology,
culture.
Right? I mean, I was thinking about our kids are issued laptops now in elementary school and iPads, right? And just the danger of what they could do on those things. And so Ezra is always asking, and Karya both, hey, can I watch YouTube? And even YouTube freaks me out because you don't know what they're going to find on there. And so we'll either say no, or you have to be near us so that we can pay attention to what you're looking at. And all he wants to do is watch. It's so stupid. I don't understand.
The Annoying Orange?
No.
Oh, I'll send that to him.
They've watched it, and that is cut from our house. They're not allowed to watch that anymore because it is terrible. No, he wants to watch other people play Minecraft. Yeah. And I don't.
It's a big thing right now, Jared.
I don't get it.
Watching others play video games.
Yeah. Which
I guess it's kind of like you and me watching football.
That's maybe. I don't know. I here's why I like it.
You might be getting old, Jared.
It's because we have a Switch, and so I'll be like, hey, you like to watch people play video games. watch me play Mario. Which they do. They loved watching me play Zelda, actually. Our kids would sit forever and watch me, and they're like, Dad, you're the best at this game. And I'm like,
Yes, I am. Keep playing.
Yes,
keep watching, kids.
That is correct. I am the best.
Hey, what's going on? My name is Jared. I am the Innovations Pastor here at Crossroads Church. If you are enjoying our content today, would you do me a favor? Go ahead and subscribe to our podcast. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you're thinking. And lastly, share with your friends. We also want you to know that every weekend we get together at 8:30, 10, and 11:30 for our weekend services. We'd love to see you there, either in-house or online. Let's get back to it.
So I know that when it came to the sex talk and things like that for you, didn't that happen on your 10-year-old trips, or did that happen before?
It actually happened before.
Okay. Yeah. So they were already prepped before your 10-year-old trip. So then what's the difference between what happens with the sex talk and what happens on your 10-year-old trip?
Yeah, so...
Is the 10-year-old trip when you become a man?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, the sex talk happens out of necessity earlier.
Yeah.
The sex talk comes when our kids are just going into 4th grade because statistically...
I missed it.
You missed it, yeah. Statistically, kids are having those conversations in 4th grade. Most boys and girls experience with porn is before the 6th grade. And so my wife and I just decided that we were going to get ahead of it. And so before you enter into the 4th grade, we're just going to have the birds and the bees talk. And we're going to be open and honest and speak to that. And our kids are super embarrassed by it, but we walk through that.
Are they still embarrassed, or do they get more comfortable as they get older?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Depends on the personality.
Sure. That's
Which
fair.
child.
That's fair. But then the 10-year-old trip is almost like a coming of age type thing.
That's exactly what it is.
When I think about growing up, I never knew when I was no longer a boy and a man.
Yeah.
I was kind of, and actually I attached sex to that. I thought once I'm married and am able to have sex, that's when I'm actually a man. And so that was kind of a confusing thing for me. So I'm glad that you are taking this initial step of saying this is what it means to be a man. I also had a weird thought that once I turned like 13, my parents were going to tell me that we were actually wizards or something, and I was going to get like special powers. That did not happen.
So unfortunate.
Yeah. So because you see all those movies where they don't like develop into their powers until they're older.
Yes.
So no, I turned 13. Nothing happened.
Nothing
happened. But so talk to me about your 10-year-old trip a little bit. And you do the boys. Is Sarah going to do Mercy?
The child gets to choose.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fun
So Mercy's
too.
trying to talk both mom and dad into going.
Okay.
For her 10-year-old trip. So she turns 10 next year. Yeah. So the way that it came about is I read, and I've mentioned this a couple times in the sermon series, a book called Modern Day Night, which impacted me pretty deeply in terms of what manhood is all about, and how back in the day when it came to knights and chivalry and all of that, how it was much easier. There was a process of becoming a man in society. Today, it's just like, hey, you graduated high school, or maybe even later, you graduated college. Now you're a man. Good luck.
Hey, you moved out of mom and dad's house and you're 30.
Yeah, good job.
You are a man.
You are a man. And so early on, I just decided, hey, my son Theo was 3 at the time when I read that book, maybe a little earlier. And I was just like, hey, I want to implement some of the stuff that's in this book. And I worked hard at coming up and going, what is really the identity of a man? And so for 7-8 years, that vision I actually challenged in my own life. And how would I live this out so that when my boys got 10, that I would be able to teach this to them. And so our 10-year-old trips are one of adventure. We give them a $1,500 limit, basically. We save $75 a month for a long time so that we can do these trips. And so when Theo became 10, his 10-year-old trip is he wanted to go to Universal in Florida.
So this isn't even like, hey, we're going up to the mountains for a day. This is like
this is their
a
trip.
big deal.
Yeah, this is their fun. What would you want to do? What's adventure for you? What's that look like? So for Theo, it certainly was Universal. So we jumped on a red-eye air flight super late at night, and it was actually one of the things that he was super excited about was how late he got to stay up and that we'd be flying through the night. We got there that morning. We went to Universal both Thursday and Friday. While we were there was a hurricane, actually, was going over Orlando.
That sounds terrible.
And so it rained a bit, but it cleared the parks. So we rode everything that we wanted to ride like 18 times in that space. And so we would go to the...
it's like that when Do you remember? Oh, what is the movie? Independence Day.
Yeah.
When everyone's traffic is all coming out of the city, and it's just the one car driving.
That's
in.
exactly the way it was for us. Like nobody was at Universal
right.
except for these two guys from Colorado.
That's so funny.
And so we had a good time. And so what we do is we go to Universal during the day, and then at dinner during the night, I would speak to the values of being a man. And so the first night I just talked through what those values were, and then the second night we talked through like live examples of what that is. And then on the trip, I actually wrote him a note while I was in the hotel room and he was sleeping. And I sent it on like Universal cardstock or whatever to him with everything that we had gone over. And so when we got home, a few days later, he got a letter in the mail that was actually from me with all of the stuff that we had talked about.
How did you do that?
That's right.
You're here.
I'm a wizard.
And the mail just came.
That's right. That's right. And so with the expectation of you get to memorize these values. You're going to make these a part of your life. And so once Theo memorized those values, I made a piece of art that's like a canvas that's 20 by 24 of a night with the 5 values on it. And so as soon as he was able to memorize that, he got that as like a plaque. He was so excited. He shared it with our community group the night that he got it and went through all the values. We hang that in his wall, on his wall. And then we would go through for really the next 6 months. Once a month, we'd go out for breakfast and we'd go through like a Bible study on each one of those values. Much like what I'm doing in the sermon here, we would just go through that value and we'd spend an hour talking about
because that
what
is the
looked
man-to-man series that we're doing now. Is you're taking one value each week of biblical manhood and really diving in.
Yeah, pretty similar to the way that I did it with my boys. Yeah. And then after those 6 months, what we would do is really start to use that in our regular conversation with Theo. And so, if there's a moment where he didn't do his homework, we would talk about accepting responsibility, that right now his work in this world is school. And so what does it look like to accept that responsibility? There's times when he'll make decisions in light of his siblings that aren't very wise. And so we have the wise conversation. And so throughout our days and our weeks, oftentimes we'll go back to these values in our discipline and our encouragement, trying to build those up with the boys. So Cademan did the same thing, only Cademan chose a Colorado adventure trip. So we went whitewater rafting 2 days in a row. We got snowed on. We got sleeted on. We went zip
Did you
lining.
sleep outside?
No, we actually ended up at a hotel.
Oh, okay.
I talked him actually into giving us like a huge upgrade. So we had this like suite that was as big as my house.
That's cool.
For the regular price. But yeah, we started with, and this was all during COVID.
Can
so
you
it was
just plan my
difficult.
trips?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
get me all the cool deals.
yeah, just hang out with Ezra and ask what he wants and make it all happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a wizard.
Yeah, make us get the really cool upgrades for free. That's
cool.
what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So in my travel agent. So
Yeah, no, I
sounds
walked
like it could be
in.
your
I
side
walked
gig.
into the hotel in Keystone, is kind of where we were staying, or Silverthorne. And I walked in, and they said, "Hey, unfortunately, the room that you booked is not available." And I said, "Unfortunately." Sounds like I get an upgrade. And the person kind of paused and looked at me awkwardly. And I said, "Oh, it doesn't mean that I get an upgrade. You're going to give me a worst room?" And I said, I'm here on my son's 10-year-old trip. And it'd be really disappointing if you gave us a worst room. And the guy was like, just backed him into a corner, man.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, we have a suite available."
That was very pioneer of you.
Yeah, just kept backing him into the corner. So pretty soon we got the honeymoon suite at the hotel. And so, yeah, it had 3 rooms in it, a kitchen, it had everything. It was great.
Oh, man. That's fun.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't realize, I guess, the extent of how much that you actually allowed them to do. And I like that you guys, that's a commitment on your guys' part too, to be like, hey, we're going to start saving, send $5 a month so that when they get to, again, we're behind on that as well. So Ezra's 10-year-old trip will have to come next summer in order for us, he'll still be 10, it's cool. And he can't go during the school year anyway.
That's
so,
right.
That'll be my excuse. But
perfect.
No, I love that. And, the first one that you spoke on, living passively, and you referenced how Adam was passive in the garden. And I'm like, that's so good. And that's such a reality, especially for our kids, even with their siblings, right? Like someone gets hurt and they're like, it's cool, I'm not hurt. Sucks to be you, know? But for them to have empathy and care for others and to stand up for for that truth and not just let things wash over, not in an unhealthy way, but in a healthy way. And so all of these values, I've just really, really appreciated them. And obviously, this is a guide to biblical manhood, but
Yeah.
you want some of this stuff for our daughters as well, right? I
absolutely.
mean, it's not like the values are man specific.
Yeah.
And so if you're not a man, I guess is what I'm saying, is that doesn't exclude you from really needing to watch this sermon series, because
Absolutely.
I think that our ladies are really going to benefit from it as
the,
well.
the really ironic thing about this sermon series so far is they've got about 100 pieces of feedback, and I kid you not, 98 of them are from women.
Yeah.
Thanking me, only 2 are from men.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
They're thanking you like, thank you. This is what my husband needs to hear.
It's that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that, every woman desires a man that is not passive, but accepts the responsibility in their lives, knows that the decisions that they're actually trying to be wise in their decisions, as we'll talk about this week, that they're leading out in the families and in the home, and that ultimately, that they're living for something greater than themselves, which is what we'll talk about the last week. And so I think that there's a space for women that actually yearn for this kind of man in their life. And when they see it, it's attractive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, as I've gotten older, and my wife and I have been together, 12, 13 years now, and learning what she actually finds attractive is completely different than what I find attractive, and so it's good to help teach those values to our kids as well. Like, this is what it means to be a good spouse when you get older as well.
Yeah. And you look at it in terms of like culture, and one of the most popular TV shows when you and I were younger was Everyone Loves Raymond, and it is hilarious. Like it's legitimately funny. And yet Raymond is the antithesis of every value that we're speaking about in this series. And the reality is that nobody really loves Raymond, right? Like you wouldn't love Raymond if you were married to him.
Right.
You would just you see it in Deborah, right? She's constantly frustrated with Raymond because he makes dumb decisions. He doesn't lead. He's constantly passive,
Super selfish.
Yeah, super selfish. And it's like, yeah, it's funny on TV watching it. And there's some reality of men in our culture, the way that we live that out. But at the end of the day, that's not what you want to be tied to. And I think that there's application for this, not only like in marrieds, which is huge, but also like in the single guy's life, right? Just because you're not married doesn't mean that all of a sudden you don't have to pay attention to these values.
Sure.
Because these values are as much a part of singleness as they are married life.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's good. So as you come home from these trips, and time has gone on, and Theo's, 13 now, so it's been 3 years. What kind of after effects do you see from this trip? I mean, obviously it's something, he's got a plaque on his wall, so you're able to refer back to those lessons that you taught as he goes through his teenage years, which I think is kind of the beauty of it happening at 10 as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was in the book or that's the reason why it's at 10.
That's why I chose it.
But I mean, the teenage years are difficult to navigate anyway, and so having that base to always go back to totally makes sense to me. And I'm just curious, with both of your boys, now that that's done, what positive effects have you seen in their lives as a result?
Yeah, I think that at the core level of being a guy, that men love to be challenged. And whether you're a boy or you get to older, being older, that there's a rise up in us that when we're challenged, that there's an expectation out there and we want to meet that expectation. Like that's just ingrained in who we are, I think. And so part of the giving them at 10 was really in those formative years in middle school was to help them through, because middle school is awful. And to say, this is where your value's at. Your value's not in what people say you are. Your value is not in all of these things. That this is who God created you to be. That this is where your value is as a young man. And so I really wanted to prep my boys going into middle school with these values, so that at the core of who they were was this. And so I think that kind of the after effects of this is both in Theo and Caedmon's life is seeing them live up to that expectation. And when they don't, to have the conversation with them and to be honest and go, hey, look, why aren't we? Why are we acting a fool in this space? And it's not
acting a fool.
Yeah. And it's not from a judgmental space.
Yeah.
It's going, this is who you've been called to be. This is your identity. Why don't you live your identity?
Yeah.
And so the positive effect that I've seen in each of my boys, and they live it out differently. Their personalities are completely different in the space, but it's a constant, just regular part of the Manning household in that. And, right now we're really thinking through something when it comes to, with my daughter, Mercy, of what does that 10-year-old trip look like? What does it look like to be, have that same calling in her life as a woman in that space? And, maybe sadly, we haven't given as much thought to that as we did the boys. And maybe it's because, men in our culture are where the struggle points are at, that we didn't think that much about it. But it's something that we're starting to think through now, knowing that Mercy's going to turn 10 next year.
Who do you think she's going to pick?
I'm trying to persuade her to choose dad.
Yeah.
But, I think it would be really sad if my wife didn't get to go.
That would be really sad. That'd be all three of them going with you, and she always has to
I
stay
am
home.
the fun one.
Yeah.
But that's what they say.
That's what they say.
I think their mom is way cooler than I am. But yeah, they all think I'm the fun one.
Maybe when they all turn 21, they'll realize, oh man,
yeah,
mom is fun.
Dad's way less the helicopter
That's right.
parent. That's what it is. Like,
yeah.
It's like, hey, Dad, we want something from the store. It's like, here's $10. Go ride to the store. And they're like, really? It's like, yeah.
What do I care? Have fun.
Go do it. Don't get in trouble.
That's right. Watching the football game.
So.
Oh man. So I want to wrap back around to just the sex talk because, like I said, it's a difficult topic to breach just in and of itself. And so I didn't know if maybe you had some strategies. It was actually really funny. So we like to watch Friends, and we keep thinking that our kids are young enough, they don't really like the stuff goes over their heads is kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah.
And the other night, we're on season 10, and Ross and Rachel sleep together again. And our 8-year-old turns around and says, "What? They had sex again?" And Christiana and I just looked at each other and we go, "Oh my gosh.
What have we done?"
Yeah, exactly. and Christiana goes, "Do you know what that means?" And she's like, "Yeah, it means they're dating again." Like, she didn't know what the word sex was.
Yeah.
She just knew that it meant that they were a couple.
Okay.
And so we didn't completely blow it, but we've half blown it.
Right.
But it totally caught us both by surprise. Like, maybe it's not going over their heads as much as we thought that it was,
right. That's right. This isn't after 8:30 watching.
That's right. Absolutely. And so Ezra, like I said, Ezra's in 4th grade this year, and so it's definitely something that's been on my mind of, man, I need to have this conversation with him.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking, how do I even bring that up in a way, and maybe it's going to be uncomfortable. Maybe there's no way around it. But maybe you have some thoughts or some strategies about what did the Manning household do to breach this topic at home and to get in front of. Because if you don't talk to them about it, somebody else is gonna, and they're probably gonna give them crap information. So it's probably
it's very true. Once they get into middle school,
yes, it's all downhill. So we need to give them the right foundation, and you want to make it so that they feel comfortable coming and talking to you about it, and it doesn't feel like. I don't ever want them to be afraid to talk with me about what they're thinking or what they're feeling or feel shameful about it.
Yeah. So in this situation, in my family, I handle the boys, Sarah handles the girls, right? There's just things on both sides of sexuality that it's like, I don't know that I could speak honestly or openly or even knowledgeably about periods.
Right. Yeah.
That's just something that
they happen.
That's right. And so with our boys, like I said, before the 4th grade year, and again, because every statistic says that your boy is going to experience some form of sexuality in a negative way, whether that be through pornography or conversation at school or whatever, during his 4th or 5th grade year. And so we just wanted to get ahead of that. So we found a resource,
Makes me want to bang my head against the wall, but go ahead.
Well, you can easily open the conversation. That's how I opened each of my conversations is, hey, we're going to have a conversation about sex. Is there anything, what do you know about sex? What have you heard? What have your friends said? And just giving them the opportunity to speak a little bit to it. They're totally embarrassed by what it is. And most of what they knew from my boys was so like silly innocent, but they still had a hard time articulating it and bringing it out without the giggles. But
Dad, come on.
Right. So we found a book called The Story of Me.
Okay.
That has age appropriateness, talks about sexuality through starting like 1 and 2 years old, all the way through early teens in this space. So we used the age-appropriate book during their third grade year. And I would give them like 2 or 3 weeks of prep. Like, hey, we're going to have the sex talk. And we were just open with the terms. And, they would both like squeal and cover their ears and their eyes and say, no, never. And it was like, no, it's going to come. And so I try to make it as fun as we could. So I actually took them out for like steak dinners. And so they got to order whatever they wanted. And we made it a big fun time. And Sarah took the other 2 kids to go do something. So it was just me and like Theo for our firstborn. And so we went out to Texas Roadhouse. He was able to order whatever he wanted. And then we came back and we read through the book together in the space. And then I just asked him if he had any questions, and then made sure that he understood the terminology that was in the book, what was happening, why it was happening, why God created sex.
So you're going to let me borrow this book?
You can absolutely borrow it. Yeah.
That would be fantastic.
And we just walked through that like in an evening. And one of the things that I impressed upon both of my boys is that when it comes to women, that every woman is treated with honor in our house, and that I'll never get upset if you're defending a woman's honor. And defending a woman's honor means standing up for her if she's being bullied. It means standing up for her if she finds herself in a position where she can't defend herself. It also means being honorable in the way that you treat a woman. So one day you'll start being attracted to a girl, and you'll notice, the physical features, and that will be a sexual attraction. And that as a man of honor, you respect her body and what that looks like. And so we have had all those conversations. And so one of the fun stories is the day after I had this talk with Theo, it was 2 weeks into his 4th grade years when we had the conversation, is that he's out on the playground the next day, and 3 boys start picking on this girl in his class about sexual things. I mean, it was sad. It was 4th grade. And they're going on, these 3 boys. And so Theo and his buddy decide that they're going to step up and they're going to defend. He's going to put in practice what we had just talked about the night before, that Dad says, honor a woman. I'll never get in trouble for honoring a woman. I'm going to step up and defend her. And so Theo and his buddy step up, and his buddy was a big guy, and kind of nobody messed with his buddy. And so his buddy stands up and he looks at the kid and he says, you need to knock it off. You need to stop picking on her name, and we'll just call her Lucy. You need to stop picking on Lucy, or I'm going to kick your...
I like
and
that.
so Theo's telling me the story. And I said, well, what did those kids do? And he goes, well, Dad, everybody knows that he could kick their... Right. And he goes, they backed down and they walked away, and we took Lucy to the side and told her that she didn't have to worry about that anymore. And it was like this proud moment in me. Not that my son knew these curse words, but that he actually stood up, and that he internalized what we had talked about the night before. And then that the very next day, sadly, there was an opportunity for him to demonstrate that. So that's kind of the way that we handle that. We did the same thing with Cademan, same conversation with him, and same way.
So 2 weeks before you actually have the sex talk, do you ask the question about what do you know about sex, or do you wait until you have the sex talk?
No, we wait till the sex talk.
Okay.
Yeah. I give him 2-3 weeks just to warm up to the idea, to get it all out.
Yeah.
And,
hey, just so you know, in 2 weeks we're going to go out and we're going to talk about sex.
Yep.
And they can start squirming in their pants.
Yep. So they know it's coming. They get time to process it. They can go talk to Mom, which has happened with both of them. Like, hey, Mom, can you go tell Dad, like, we don't need to have this talk, like, later on in life. And she's, no, you need to have this conversation. And so we, like I said, and I tell them 2 weeks ahead of time that while this might be a little awkward for you, it's also equally awkward for me. I just have the conversation with them about that. But I'm going to make it as fun as we can. And so we're going to have a good time beforehand. So where would you like to go eat? And whatever they say, I just try to make it happen and let them order what they want. We get desserts and fill our face with ice cream.
I only eat at Michelin star restaurants.
Yes. So. There you go. You might want to start saving for that too. But yeah, so we go down that road, and, for both of them, in their teenage years, they've been more open with us about what's going on in terms of their classroom, and a little bit more open to when it comes to dating and what that looks like as they're starting to explore that world. And
Do
then
you have rules on dating?
we discourage it as kindly as we can. What we found is that like dating in middle school is like this weird thing of like, we like each other, right? So Theo's been dating a girl, but like they've never actually gone and done any. In fact, for a while she came to the youth group here, and I would drop them off, and they wouldn't even look at each other. And so
Sounds like a middle school relationship.
middle school relationship. So, you know, we whenever the dating conversation comes up, we just talk about honor a lot, and what does it look like to honor when you're with a lady, and all that. And so it's again just a constant part of conversation going forward of what we've taught, what we've tried to demonstrate to our kids, and then we just try to be open about what it looks like in the midst of relationship. What does sexuality look like in the midst of relationship? And so they understand that. And you know, my middle school second son, Cademan, is way more open with wanting to talk about sexuality than Theo is. Theo, you know, he's good with the talk and then just let me move on. Yeah. Cademan, he likes awkward and he likes to have a good time. And sometimes those two things are not, he doesn't live in wisdom in those spaces. And so he says things that are totally inappropriate and we have to just walk through it with him.
Yeah, it's good though. I mean, I think having that open door of communication to help, knowing that you're creating a safe space for them to come talk to, because they're going to talk to somebody. And so I know that that's just a really big deal.
Yeah.
So,
and I would say my wife is so good at that.
Yeah.
She is so good at seeing opportunities and leaning into those opportunities. And so it just is reinforced in our home, more so through her than me, if I was being honest in that space, because she sees it and she just leans into it much more aware than I am.
Well, hook me up with that 4th grade book.
I will.
I'm ready.
You got it.
I'm prepared now. So, hey, we are in the middle of this man-to-man series. It is really, really a good series talking about Biblical Guide to Manhood. And so be sure to go to our YouTube channel. You can see all of our past messages are coming out. Also wanted to give a heads up that on October 23rd, we are premiering our very first Crossroads original series called Practical Living.
I'm super pumped for this.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. We have 4 episodes. We're doing the Disney Plus model. So we'll release 1 episode each week for 4 weeks.
Nice.
And then if it goes well, we'll be able to create some more episodes. So,
awesome.
help us out. Watch the episode. Share it with your friends. It's going to be really cool. We get to see behind the scenes of a welder, an MMA fighter, a race car driver, and a tattoo artist, and we get to hear their stories as well. It's a really cool thing. And so that trailer is actually on our YouTube channel as well. You can check that out and get pumped with us. But premieres October 23rd. October 24th is a Sunday, and we're actually having Practical Living premiere day.
Nice.
And so 3 of our 4 guests will be in-house in the lobby just hanging out. You can come, you can talk to them, you can hang out with them. The 4th one is Parnell, the MMA fighter. He's going to be in Iowa where he lives. Yeah. And I told him, I invited him. I said, hey, man, we would love to fly you out and be a part of this premiere day. And he said, well, it's right around my wife's due date. And they're getting ready to have their 5th boy.
So he actually got the sex talk early in life and understood it well.
Correct. Yes. 5 boys.
5 boys.
And I told him, this is what I told him. I said, this is your 5th kid. She knows what she's doing. I don't think she needs you for this one. He didn't agree with me. So he's going to stay home.
I'm glad he's
and take
accepting
care of his wife.
responsibility.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's a very good biblical manhood thing to do. So, but yeah, just really, really pumped about it. So help us out. Check that out. And lots of good things are always happening here at Crossroads. Cool. So it's fun to be a part of. Thanks, Matt, for being with me.
Glad to.
And we'll check you out next time.
All right.